Hello and welcome to another video. Considering we've covered a lot of the older decks, or oldish decks, that we've covered at the start of this expansion, I thought why not revisit the Ramp Dragon, which is still a really nice and easy to play deck. It's also on the stronger side, I'd say, at the moment in the current meta. It does okay against Sword, which is important. It does okay in the mirror matches as well most of the time, and it's a very straightforward deck to play, as you do pretty much just massively curve from turn 2 up and try and ramp as much as possible to, of course, get Prince as soon as possible. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. So our opening match is going to be against a DragonCraft,
Shall we cross swords?
which is hit and miss a lot of the time, I find, when I'm playing against it. Usually DragonCraft can do okay if it's an experienced player playing Blood. Typically, if it's not, which is the more common situation, you'll see some weird plays come out that you wouldn't usually expect, which can throw you through a loop, but usually aren't a big deal. And with no turn 1, that definitely limits what Blood can do, especially since we have Dragon Oracle. They're looking for a very good ramp setup, and that gives away immediately that it is going to be a Mecha Blood, most likely focusing on Mono and the Evos, which isn't a bad strategy, but is definitely not the best way to do things typically. I still find that Dark Beast Bat is more consistent overall, in my opinion, but it really does come down to the player now for that, so keeps things a little more interesting. So I was really aiming to try and get something as a better draw for this turn. Unfortunately, it didn't really go that way. At least on the bright side, it managed to buy us a little time. And that was actually a decent draw, getting 7 of Disdain. I do waste my spells since I can of course play it. And going with the Evo actually gives us a couple more points to work with. Not that they're going to be very useful to us, unless we get a good draw off this. And that's an okay draw, but not really that useful, so really we're going to be relying on next turn to really start solidifying our lead, since we can just go straight for the Omen of Disdain. That would just wipe the board, or we can just throw a Poseidon down, which honestly is probably the better play. Some decent warded setup, since we're not really going to get any big advantage from Omen this turn. Evil Eye Serpent is an interesting one. I have heard of a few people running the Medusa setup for Bloods in Mecha, but definitely piques my interest when I see it actually get played. And we've managed to ramp up quite a bit. That Prince is actually a viable play. So even though I expect that Prince will probably be killed off pretty immediately, it's really not a big issue, as they can't wipe out both in any super effective way. So it's definitely going to cost them their Evo points. Viper Lash, that's actually a really good way to do it. Fortunately for them though, they have to deal with this. Either the Omen would have been a good play, or in this case this drop, which is actually better since it does block out any big play like Medusian here. And since they pretty much have to do the attack, you can't risk leaving that up against this. And we're actually very safe just to go for Poseidon and Wrathful, so Wrathful is going to be really good, giving us those extra Evos, allowing us to really boost our board up. And we really don't need a lot to close this out now. Another Medusa play, no real surprise to be honest. They really need some way to deal with this. Putting yourself at 16, definitely risky. And they now gave me a perfect way to actually deal with this board. So we can wipe out the majority and actually go for lethal, thanks to the fact that we can use the Evo point for a perfect lethal. For the next match, we are up against Rune. They're also a Princess Cup champion, which doesn't tell us a lot. It just means that, of course, they did very well in that Grand Prix. So Anne Rose and Demonic Core are actually really good. Raging Dragon is a little awkward, and redrawing it actually kind of sucks. I would have preferred some better early game plays, and since our Draconic Cores are actually going to be a little slow this match, luckily we are going up against a Rune, which typically does play on the slower side. I did decide to force out a early Poseidon just because I don't want to have to deal with the potential Rune bursts from any position. We can go for, of course, Draconic Core into Draconic Core, which will be okay, and then turn 5 we can actually go for the Ann Rose, and once we use that Evo we'll be looking at an extremely insane boost. We're actually going to gain 3 play points in a single turn and restore 4, so that should be a very, very interesting one. And fortunately Rune hasn't done anything too crazy yet. So we're going to replenish these play points. We're actually going to go up to 6 total, which is well above what our turn count should be. And will give us a very nice chance to kind of flood the board. And even though we don't have Prince yet, we can actually grab that from Lyria. Azure Maiden should do a nice job of pulling it next turn. And we'll still have enough play points to play out a few other cards to really set up our lead. So of course they're going to wipe out the few things that are a pain for them to deal with. And we're just going to kind of swing for the fences here. We've got our Prince for next turn. We've got a very nice way to get some more cards into our hand to kind of set up our lead. Since we do want a few good dragon cards in our hand at least to take advantage of, just in case Prince doesn't pan out next turn. We don't want to get into a top decking battle. Azure Maiden though has survived with its warding intact, which is good. Being able to block out that damage should be good for it. So Prince taking out the 3-4 and really just getting that little bit of damage in. Omen of Truth, very good play, but not really going to be good enough. They are going to be forced to deal with the Prince now. They can't really do anything else. And we do have the Poseidon combo if we want it. Not that we want to use it yet. So Infernal Surge it is. I was so close to having a potential lethal. I would have been so happy if I could have pulled it off. Unfortunately, being just short with play points. At least next turn will be extremely good. We've already got the Storm Follower, so as long as I don't set up a ward, we should be fine. Since we can deal at least 7 damage with it, so their healing would have to be pretty intense as well if they wanted to make a difference. And they do have to deal with this board, since they can't really afford to leave anything up here. Luckily Double Fiery does a nice job of that, so good on them for having Double Fire. Not going to be enough though to deal with Flame Lord of Deceit, which does just, of course, win us the game. So this is definitely another deck that is always really solid in rotation. If you're looking for something just to kind of carry you through, usually this deck can do the job. Of course, if you run into a lot of higher end players, it can be difficult as they do know exactly how this deck is going to curve out, as it is extremely predictable as far as things go. You might be able to add a card here or there that might make it less predictable, but overall, you're going to know what's coming. So if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. You will find this deck list in the description below. Until next time guys, see ya.